Today, we're going to be talking about Silent Hill for the PlayStation 1. Now, the reason why you're looking at a post-it note rather than a physical copy is because I don't have a physical copy. Physical copies of Silent Hill can go for about $100, if not more, and I'm just not willing to pay that. So instead, a couple years back, for the PlayStation 3 on the PSN store, I decided to pick up the first Silent Hill as a PS1 classic for very cheap. You can find Silent Hill 1 on the PlayStation 3 store, PSN, as of the making of this video for $5.99. And to my knowledge, in regards to owning an actual copy of this game, this might be the only way you could do it. I don't know if for the PlayStation Plus Gold package or whatever, the PS4 and PS5, where you could stream games, I don't know if it's going to be on there, maybe, but I don't know if it's to buy, to keep for good and all that stuff. If you want to buy Silent Hill 1 outside of paying Larry on eBay $150 for a used copy that might not even include the manual, you could do that, or you can go on the PlayStation 3 store and grab it for $5.99. It is very affordable. I do not know why this game isn't on good old games GOG.com. Silent Hill 4 is on good old games GOG.com if you want to play Silent Hill 4. It is $9.99 if I remember correctly. 2 has been remade, but there is also a 2 and 3 package on the PlayStation 3. A lot of people don't seem to like it. I plan to take a look at that eventually myself, but first, we're going to be talking about the first game. Now, if you follow this channel, if you've been watching a lot of my game reviews, I'm not exactly, I'm not new to it, but I'm not exactly somebody who buys a crap ton of horror games and plays a bunch of horror games. I have played the Fatal Frame trilogy. I really like that. I have played Parasite Eve 1 and 2, and I've made reviews about those on this channel. 2, and especially, I have been griping on for a very long time about tank controls. And that's one of the main things that pulls me away from playing too many of these PS1 survival horror classics is the tank controls. Tank controls are pretty much how your character moves when you are in first-person mode, playing a first-person shooter or something. You would be pressing the forward button to move forward in any direction your character's looking at. The forward button will move you forward. You press the left and right on your analog stick, and they will turn in that direction, and then the camera will turn with that perspective, and you can go in that direction. Now, they took those controls and took it from first-person camera into a third-person fixed camera, which bothered the ever-loving heck out of me. I don't mind tank controls in first-person point of view. Even in third-person over the shoulder, I'm okay with it. But in this fixed camera angle, I despise it. But Silent Hill 1 does something absolutely incredible that completely saved the game for me. And that is, you can change your button mapping, so I'm not going to pull out a controller to show you which button, because the button mappings, you can make any button, to do whatever you want. I left it as R2, and that button is View, as in VIEW. The View button basically puts your character's perspective into first third-person mode. I believe you have to go into the secret options menu in order to make this happen. I believe you have to press the L1, L2, and R2 and R1 buttons at the exact same time on the options screen to make this menu show up. And on this menu, you could see a little toggleable option for view mode, where you could change it to self-view, or looking through your own eyes, first-person perspective view. When you press the view button, that's what's going to happen. And that is what I chose to do. I decided to make that perspective the first-person perspective. What that means is when you hold down the R2 button, your screen perspective goes into Harry's own view. What he's looking at is what you're looking at. When you use your analog stick to turn right or left, the camera turns whatever Harry's looking at, whatever direction Harry is pointed in, that's where the camera is pointing. You see whatever he's looking at, and the controls suddenly became absolutely usable, feasible, tolerable, preferable. But I can't stand it in the third-person perspective. It is so disorienting to me. Maybe because I haven't been raised on that control system. I am used to pressing the front button to go away from the screen, pressing the back button to go towards the screen, pressing the right analog stick, and he goes to the right, left, he goes to the left. If the camera perspective, if it's fixed, and you're going north, and suddenly the camera changes, and suddenly north is now right, so long as you're continuing to hold forward on that button, you continue to run forward. And then as soon as you let go, if you go forward again, he's no longer going right, he's going up into a wall, so you have to press right, yada 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 yada. I'm used to free range movement. And tank controls in third person perspective are they're confounding, confusing, befuddling. I don't get it! But in the view mode, it fixes everything. The camera perspective goes into Harry's first-person point of view, and everything is perfectly hunky-dory and rage-free. I was able to play this game by holding down, because it's not a toggleable button. That's a problem with the game. I would have preferred it was toggleable, where if you pressed R2, you go into first-person perspective, and it just stays there. You don't have to hold down R2 the entire time. But I'll take what I can get to avoid having to play freaking tank controls. So I held down R2 the entire time. Pretty much the entire time I was playing this game. So then I can play the game from first-person point of view, where controls actually work properly for me, personally. Me personally, you know. And I ended up having a lot of fun. I had a far more amount of fun than I did playing Parasite Eve 2. Because Parasite Eve 2 did not have this view mode where you can switch to first-person perspective and actually move around and shoot things in this perspective. It was fantastic. It was incredible playing the game like that. The only downside to view mode is he cannot look up and he cannot look down. So if he's standing right in front of an item that you can bend over to pick up, you will not see it. You will have to let go of the R2 button so that the camera goes back out into fixed third-person mode so you could see something on the floor for him to pick it up. You also can't see behind Harry, but you can't see behind yourself without turning as well. So I didn't mind this. If I got hit from behind, I just turned around and gave it a good old 1-2 with the shotgun, and then it went away, and then I went about my business. The controls are very easy to understand. It only took me maybe 30 minutes to figure everything out and figure out how to use that first-person perspective button. And once I figured that out, everything fell into place immediately. Running was easy. turning and veering was so much easier in this game than in Parasite Eve 2. Holy crap, it was so much easier. I will honestly say that Silent Hill 1, outside of Parasite Eve 2's weapon selection, there's like 20 weapons that you could pick up, lots of grenade launchers, rocket launchers, and all sorts of cool stuff for you to use. Silent Hill 1 is not a shooter action oriented horror game. It's more of a psychological, atmospheric horror game. You will get some weapons. You'll get a pistol, you'll get a shotgun, and you'll get a rifle. That's all you get. You'll get 3 sets of ammunition for each of these weapons. It can hold up to 200 rounds each, and then of course you get a bunch of melee weapons like a knife, a pipe, an axe, etc. You can use those for up close damage. But if you want to do ranged, you'll need to use the 3 guns that you can find. The pistol you can get immediately at the start of the game. It is very easy to use. You have to hold down the aim button, and then you press X, the action button, or whatever button you decided to make it. You want to make it R1, then R1's the action button. Whatever the button you put for the action button. You hold down aim, and then you press the action button to shoot. It was very self-explanatory. You shoot the bad guys go away, and you can continue about your day. The horror aspect of Silent Hill, I would say, is very atmospheric. The beasties, the monsters that you come across, they're not scary at all. They're nobody's business. They're just annoying nuisances that get in the way. So you just have to pew, they go away, they're done. And then you can go back to actually feeling chilled by the actual ambience that the sound team put in this game. Akira Yamaoka is the soundtrack composer. And while there aren't too many songs that go through the game, they're very quiet. They're very atmospheric, and they're very unsettling. If you turn your volume up on your television set to hear the music, the sound effects, and all that whooshing and dripping of the waters and the sewers and all this whisperings and all this other stuff in the background, that also gets to turn up with the volume. And that is where you get unnerved. That is where the tension is. I've always said that Dead Space had one of the best atmospheric horror in regards to sound. The sound of the Ishimura ship is absolutely unsettling. No matter where you are on that ship, you are assaulted by sound. The atmosphere of that game is incredible. And this, for a PS1 game, is incredible in its atmosphere. The sound is so important to building tension. I cannot even begin to describe how important it is. Now, Silent Hill also has a lot in common with David Lynch. David Lynch's Twin Peaks. It is Jacob's Ladder, psychological horror. H.P. Lovecraft's fear of the spookies and the monsters and all that other stuff. And Lynch especially. I more know about Lynch. I know less about Lovecraft. But Lynch especially Twin Peaks, there are a lot of connections that I have found between Silent Hill and the Twin Peaks series. There is a concept of another world. There is a concept of doppelgangers. And there is also a concept of an evil version of yourself. And there's so much in connection that I found between Twin Peaks and Silent Hill that I was almost surprised not to see a tribute to the Black Lodge. Deadly Premonition had one of those, almost exactly the Black Lodge, and red curtains and everything, but at least it didn't do too blatant of a ripoff like Deadly Premonition did, though Deadly Premonition also feels a lot like Silent Hill, but that's because Silent Hill feels a lot like Twin Peaks. Though Silent Hill definitely isn't a calming place to be. Well, actually, the fog world. There's three versions of Silent Hill. There's the fog world, which is daytime. There's nighttime in Silent Hill, which is basically with fog, calming fog world, but no more fog. It's just dark. And then there's the other world. Sorry about that. Something fell over and I had to pick it back up. Where was I? Twin Peaks. Yeah, it's not exactly like Deadly Premonition. It is more like Twin Peaks. And I can appreciate that because Twin Peaks is one of my absolute favorite shows. I loved all of the characters. And of course, the three worlds. We have Fog World, which is not necessarily like Twin Peaksy daytime, but more the other world aspect. The lodges, the black and white lodges, where time doesn't exactly work the same way, and things stretch and morph and change and all sorts of weird things. That's more of the other world. That's the third world of Silent Hill, is the other world aspect, where things start to look a little different. You know, the normal streets that you're running down suddenly look all rusted and iron and bars and chains. There's gurneys in the school. There's wheelchairs and gurneys and gowns of doctor stuff in the schools, and you're like, what's this? Why is all of this hospital-y stuff in this place? And then you get the feeling that your things aren't quite what they seem to be. And, of course, if you watched the Silent Hill movie like I did before playing Silent Hill the game, you've already figured out what this nowhere is. It's the mind of a psychic child tormented by the fire that consumed and burned her alive and all that other stuff. And so when you see all of the rust and all the gurneys and the hospital-y stuff, it's because she was in a hospital when the fire happened. All of the rust and brown burningness is the fire that's still burning in her nightmares. It is a very psychological aspect of it all, and it's just... it really is very good, but of course it didn't surprise me because I watched the movie before I played this game, and the movie combines a lot of elements from sequels that I have not played. I've only played this one, and the story isn't exactly deep. You know, when you play an RPG like Final Fantasy VII on the PS1, that is a deep story. You're gonna be there for 40 hours at least. In Silent Hill, you can knock this out in 6 to 7 hours if you know where you're going. The story, the cutscenes aren't that much. It's more of an atmospheric story. You're connecting everything just by looking at it and observing things and picking things up and reading little books that you could find that are interactable and finding out about the world on your own. It's not gonna spoon feed too much of it to you. I got the good ending. There's 4 endings. There's the good plus, good, and bad plus. I got the good plus. To get the good plus, you need to save Sybil Bennett, which is the cop lady, and then you also need to do the Dr. Kaufman side quest. And once you do those 2 things, you should be locked into the good plus ending where Sybil survives, and you get to do all the good stuff at the end. And it's a sweet ending, and it's a little bit open-ended. It doesn't really have a definitive aftermath of the cutscene where Harry gets to leave Silent Hill and he has a conversation with Sybil about what he saw there. No, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. He's running out of Silent Hill and it cuts to credits. And that's it. But that end credits theme was incredible. I absolutely loved that theme. But like I said when I compared this to Parasite Eve 2, the guns are just 3 simple weapons. The monsters almost seem like an afterthought. you could remove them entirely, and the game would become an action-adventure point-and-click almost. And I like those. I honestly do. They were pretty popular in the 90s on the computer, not necessarily on consoles too much, but I would play those. I would play a Silent Hill that was more of a point-and-click action-adventure, less shooty monsters just for the sake of it, because it really is how these monsters feel like in the first game, is that they're just there for you to have something to hit while you're exploring the abstract map that is Silent Hill. They're just getting in the way so that you have something to do outside of solve the mystery. You'd think the mystery would be interesting enough, but no. Here's this winged creature, go shoot it. Here's this nurse lady with a hump demon thingy coming out of her back, shoot that. Here's this ghosty thing, go shoot that. It's the variety's not big, but it's not terrible either. These every enemy does have a connection to the character whose nightmare you're visiting. So as to say, the dogs are related to dogs that that this character has seen in her well-to-do life. The nurses are based off the nurses in the hospital. She spends so much of her time in a hospital. The child ghost thingies are based off her time in a school setting. It's all connected. So even though the monsters feel pointless, at least they feel connected to something. Inventory, that's another thing I can talk about. Inventory is a lot better. While ammunition is controlled, you only get to carry 200 of any type of ammunition. If you have 200 handgun ammo, and you find a handgun ammo laying around, and you pick it up, you're not going to just suddenly get 220 handgun ammo. You're just going to stay at 200, and you just wasted that pickup. You might as well leave pickups of ammo where you found it and just remember where it is, because you can come back and pick it up if you need it later. So if you have full ammunition, don't pick up ammo that you don't need. And key items, you can carry as many of those as you want. There is no inventory limit like Resident Evil or Parasite Eve 2. You can carry as much as you need in regards to key items. You'll use them as you need to, and then they disappear after you use them. Health items, you could pick up as many as you want. I had 25 by the time I finished the game. You can pick up the first aid kits, as many as you want. I may have used one or two, but outside of that, everything stacks. You can carry all of the melee weapons. There's no limit. You can pick all of them up. You don't have to drop anything and do item management like you do in other horror games. I found that. I appreciated that. I really did. That was really good. I would have appreciated if you're going to have enemies in the game for you to shoot, I would have appreciated more weapon variety, like another type of gun, maybe like a machine gun, or even a rocket launcher, and a big beastie type of enemy to use the rocket launcher against. And maybe they do that in the sequel, so I'm gonna hold off on that judgment to see if they do that later. But that is Silent Hill. Thank you for including that first-person perspective mode, because if that wasn't in the game, I would have raged. I would probably still be playing it, because my character would continue be bumping into everything, because the camera perspective changed. I immediately my brain just changes and go like, oh, I gotta go left, and I turn left, and he's just veering and like a tank. It's instead of running to the left, so I have to remember that, oh, he has to turn then do that. It's just so thank you for the first person perspective mode. all games with the horror genre element should have this first-person perspective mode. Now, I will say this, the first-person perspective mode does feel unfinished, like they didn't intend for you to play the whole game in this perspective, because there are a lot of 3D models that are unfinished in the hidden camera angles, because the camera is fixed. There are a lot of areas that the camera will never show you when it is fixed. In the first-person mode, you can look at these camera angles and look at these 3D models that normally you'd never see from this angle, and you'll find that a lot of them are unfinished, and you'll find that a lot of things warp and change and get all oblong-shaped and all that. It's very interesting. I don't know if they actually intended very early on to make this a first-person perspective, but then decided to go with the tried and true tank controls third-person perspective instead, but they left this mode in just in case somebody wanted to use it. Thank you for doing that, by the way. But I'm curious. I get curious about those types of things, and I wonder whose idea that was and why it was put in there, but I appreciate it. There were a lot of perspectives that I was able to see in the Silent Hill world that I never would have from a fixed perspective. I could see everything as Harry was turning, and it was really good. The story is okay. The world of Silent Hill is the most fascinating thing about it, especially with the music. The music is fantastic. But I don't have to tell you that. But if you haven't played this before, I recommend you take a look at it, however way you wish to do so.